across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next couple of hours, and I have some news for you. As of Monday, due to popular demand, the phone-in will return. So as of Monday, we are returning you to have your voice and to have your say. It has been missed, so we always do what you want. So we're bringing it back. So I just thought I'd let you know that. I will be reminding you through the programme as well that we will be returning to having a full hour of phone-in as of Monday, and I cannot wait to start talking to you guys again. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. Right, now though, let's have a look and see what's happening for tonight. We have a new newspaper review. I think you're going to like her. I certainly like the look of her. It's Stella Chadakido. I knew I'd get the name wrong at some point, but that's right, is it? Chadakido. There you go. Stella Chadakido is coming. She's a former Labour aide. She's really feisty. I think you'll love her. She's going to be with me at midnight to go through the papers for Wednesday. So that's coming up. Victoria Bousis, the filmmaker, technologist and AI studio founder, will be here as well to talk all things AI. I'm particularly interested in Tilly Norwood. Have you heard of Tilly Norwood? Tilly Norwood is this AI actor that is a subject of a signing battle to sign her up to an agency, and the real life actors are incredibly worried about it. So we'll be talking about that. I'm absolutely fascinated by that, because before you know it, there'll be an AI generated Petrie, and that'll be the end of me. Also, we're going to be talking to Paula Higgins, Chief Executive of the Home Owners Alliance. If you were one of those people who had government support to fix your damp and now you've got problems, we'll be discussing that. So that's big in the news as well. And also getting your home ready for the winter. But before that, it was only yesterday that we were talking about the ceasefire. Before that, but yesterday, everybody was hailing, particularly Donald Trump, was hailing the end of conflict in the Middle East. It took less than 24 hours, and we've already seen some real problems coming from Gaza. Not only were there several people shot dead by IDF when they encroached on land. By the way, the IDF is holding 53% of Gaza at the moment. So when these people encroached on their part of Gaza, they were warned to turn back, so we're told. They were shot dead. Numbers vary, actually. It's very interesting. Some people are saying 7, some people are saying 6. I even read one article in a very reputable paper saying 2. So I don't know whether we're getting the right numbers. But anyway, several people were shot dead. We also found out that Hamas, now that the IDF has retreated from the streets in certain areas, are now regaining those streets, and in fact have summarily put people to death. We saw 8 people being dragged on their knees into a square and then shot in the back of the head by Hamas. So what is going to happen with Hamas now? What can we expect? And we already do. We kind of have a template on this, right? I mean, in certain ways, we have the IRA. So the IRA shifted from being a paramilitary force to Sinn Féin, to be a political player. Could Hamas do the same? Is it possible that they could do the same? And when people think the IRA has disappeared, of course we know they haven't. Can you ever beat an idea? This has always been my concern when people have talked about peace and killing Hamas. It is very difficult to kill an idea. Look at ISIS. Another example of what happens when you think that you've killed an idea. So, to discuss this and more, Duncan Gardam joins me, security analyst and international terrorism expert. Duncan, it is good to speak to you again. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. So many questions. Like I said, we do sort of have templates with the way terror organisations have worked before and how you bring them to the table. Is Hamas likely to be able to come to any political table, do you think? Or is this an idea that is so entrenched in violence that it is unlikely to change?
Well, I think the answer to that is that a lot of it relies on the two main backers of either party in the conflict here, really, and that is the Americans' ability to influence the Israelis, and essentially the Qataris and some of the other backers in terms of Turkey and Egypt's ability to influence Hamas, but particularly the Qataris in that sense. I think there is every possibility without that outside influence that a conflict could just keep dragging on for years and years, because you can see, if you like, the different positions that both states are coming from at the moment. The Israeli state and the Hamas terrorist group are coming from. They're very different approaches to what they expect to get out of it, and trying to bridge that gap into a plausible peace plan is a challenge that's been going on really for 70 years now, and that really is the challenge, to try and bring that about. Whether Trump can do that or not, and this goes beyond being a simple ceasefire and becomes an actual peace process, we don't know yet.
I just want to play a quick clip, if I can, Duncan, of something that Trump said earlier on today, if I can. This is about the possibility of Hamas being disarmed. This is what the President of the United States said earlier.
We have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes. You say
because
quickly.
you always, everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm. And I spoke to Hamas, and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's what they told me. They will disarm, or we will disarm them. Got it?
So, Duncan, a couple of things in there. What does he mean by, or they will be disarmed quickly and perhaps violently? We will disarm them. Is he talking about American troops? What do you think he's saying there?
Well, unfortunately, your guess is as good as mine on this one. And the idea of we, I mean, it seems vanishingly unlikely that the Americans will actually put boots on the ground to go and disarm Hamas. So by we, I have to say, it sounds like he means the Israelis, and he's clubbing America in with the Israelis, and by that he means that the Israelis will go back in. But in that case, it's not a peace process, because part of this release of hostages has been that guarantee backed by America that the IDF will withdraw to this agreed line and that they won't re-enter Gaza. But that has been done without any process by which Hamas will be disarmed, and they have, as he rightly says, agreed to disarm. But there is even now some debate about what disarming means to them, whether that means just rockets and heavy weapons and artillery, or whether that means the firearms that you can see the individuals carrying around the streets in the pictures that you're showing. And for it to be verifiable, and I think that's one of the elements that we found in Northern Ireland, was that it's all very well to say we have disarmed, but then there were for years rumours of secret arms caches, and in the end those arms caches were an important part of the actual disarming of the IRA and the ongoing peace process. But if people cast their mind back to the late 90s, those issues about actually disarming the IRA were really critical and dragged on for some time.
I mean, looking at the IRA as a let's say as a template for how it could be done, as I said leading up to introducing you, one of the reasons is because of the political arm they were able to have, that they had a voice in the future of Northern Ireland, even if it was a political voice rather than a paramilitary one. My sense is that even if that was a way to lasting peace, to invite Hamas, the political party, to the table, I can't see Israel or America accepting that, even if it was a path to peace. Do you think that's a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on there. That has been one of the main obstacles, if you like, to an ongoing peace process, was the knowledge really that before October the 7th, successive opinion polls seem to suggest that if the Palestinian Authority were to have elections in the West Bank, that Hamas would take control of the West Bank as well as Gaza. And that represented a real threat to Israel because of their stance on Israel and because of their dedication to an ongoing armed conflict. And the concern there that could still happen is obviously written into this 20-point plan that Trump has come up with, because it's very much talking about reform and stabilization of the Palestinian Authority. And of course, one of the reasons why the current president is relatively unpopular is that feeling that the Palestinian Authority amongst some Palestinians is a corrupt institution and doesn't serve their interests. So I think one of the key elements to this is going to be that reform of the Palestinian Authority, ensuring that it still represents the Palestinian people, is still regarded as legitimate by the Palestinian people, but also is operating in a more efficient way, but doesn't give, if you like, a back door back in for an armed resistance. Whether Hamas can play a part in that seems unlikely, but it may be that some of the leadership that have spent their time in Qatar over the last few years may be able to have a role, but it doesn't sound like that's the vision that either Israel or America have at the moment.
If though you take a fairly disparate group of people like Hamas, with violence, you know, at the core, the ongoing war, the power that they've already seized back from the streets of Gaza, and if you try to squash that, or as Trump would say, to erase them, or Netanyahu would say, we're going to completely get rid of them, that is just naive, isn't it? I mean, it's an idea. People thought that about ISIS. Oh, we beat ISIS. Well, it hasn't happened, and it won't happen.
Well, it definitely won't happen, because in the sense that terrorist groups develop an afterlife, if you like. But the question really is, how significant is that afterlife? And again, you know, with the danger of you drawing comparisons that aren't always legitimate. But if we look at Northern Ireland, there is an ongoing problem with dissident activity in Northern Ireland. It's never quite gone away, and there have been moments when of real jeopardy. If we look back to the killing of soldiers in 2009 and of a constable, PC Carroll, from the PSNI, that was a real moment when that peace process could have fallen apart, but didn't. And so whatever the outcome here, we have to accept that there is likely to be a dissident element to it. But then the issue I think that you're actually referring to is just how big is Hamas's presence as we speak in Gaza, and are they likely to be able to still hold sway? And that really, I think, is too difficult to tell at the moment. I mean, we know really that as a result of 20 years of control of Gaza, that they've been able to control the education system, and that they do have a lot of support in Gaza, and that a lot of young men are prepared to put down weapons and then pick them up at the control of Hamas, and they seem to have, or at least claim to have, been able to mobilize around several hundred armed individuals in the Gaza Strip today. The question is, first of all, the depth of that armed resistance, and secondly, are people really ready for peace? And I think if for those of us that have been to areas of conflict and then spoken to them as peace processes unfold, you actually do find that peace is quite addictive to people, and you can see the relief in these pictures that you're showing here, that people really have had enough of fighting for 2 years, and they really do want to rebuild their homes, and that actually could become a really important thing here as they try and work out and find a path of compromise through this process, is just that desire really to stop fighting, and that's always been a problem, if you like, here. I mean, and will continue to be a problem, in that a lot of the Palestinians feel that they've been pushed off their land, that it's in the relatively recent past, 1948, their grandparents had property in Israel. They feel a real sense of loss there, and that continues for Palestinians. As they try and negotiate a peace here, it's important that practical solutions are found to emotional problems, and I think that's really what we have to hope for in the coming days, weeks, months, and years.
Do you think that Donald Trump views Hamas as an army that is run in a structured way, and therefore if the order goes out to put down their weapons, that's what they do? Because although Hamas may be organised, we do know that there are different groups and different clans, if you like, and they themselves could start a civil war for power in the region. How complicated is it to get Hamas to behave in the way that Donald Trump wants them to behave?
Yeah, and again, another really good point in that we've discovered over the years that the political leadership in Qatar and the military leadership in Gaza are not always speaking with the same voice. And so, not least because as a result of the current conflict, that the communication has been quite difficult between the two, because from a simply technical point of view, but also because of the concerns that the Israelis may use some of that communication to target the military leadership. So actually there is a very real question about to what extent the leadership's promises actually translate on the ground. And as you say as well, Gaza is a tribal area. It has lots of different families and lots of different tribes that have been competing with each other, particularly in the last few days. And we've seen some of them side against Hamas. They are accused by Hamas of receiving Israeli backing. They don't necessarily accept that, but they do say that they oppose Hamas. So there are armed men on the streets who are Palestinians who oppose Hamas, and that could pose another difficulty for Gaza, in that if these factions start fighting amongst each other, then that can result in a lot of lawlessness. And one of the if you like, popular elements of Hamas to Gazans was its ability to make sure there was a certain degree of law and order. Now, most people would say that that came at the point of a gun, in that they swept through Gaza, pushing out Fatah members literally at the point of a gun. And that was their form of law and order. But it certainly was law and order in a real sense. And Gazans don't want a conflict with Israel to be replaced by a warfare between different rival gangs.
And finally, if I can, Duncan, this question over the return of the dead bodies of those hostages, there's been a deadline given for them to be returned. Israel is still not opened corridors. They've reduced the amount of aid that's going in until they get these bodies back. Is that fair, given that much of the leadership, many of the people who would have kidnapped these people in the first place are probably dead or buried under rubble, or indeed some of these hostages may have been killed by Israeli strikes in the first place? But if they're saying that they don't know where these bodies are, that is going to cause real tension, isn't it, if they're being genuine and they don't know where they are, and are accused of holding them hostage in this way.
Yes, and again, that's another problem in the. I mean, there are good points and bad points about the speed with which this has all happened. The good point, of course, is that fewer people are dying right now, in that the Israelis have pulled back and they're not killing people. The difficult point is that there is no force on the ground easily able to verify the things that both sides are saying. For instance, the Israelis shooting people this afternoon, saying they'd come too close to their lines. But equally, what you were pointing out about if Hamas say we can't find these bodies and we've lost them, who's going to go down there and verify that? And so that's one of the processes as part of Trump's 20-point plan, is still quite vague about who exactly might get involved in the verification process that will be necessary in order to form a lasting peace.
Is this going to hold, this ceasefire, in your view, as an expert?
I think we all really, really hope it does, don't we? But I think with any situation like this, there will be we hope relatively minor breaches, but there does seem to be a genuine will on both sides to forge a peace process here. I think none of us thought that the release of hostages would happen quite so quickly as it has done. And the fact that that has happened does give us hope that the outside forces, if you like, going back to where we started, the Americans and the Qataris in particular are having some influence on their proxies, and that those groups, Israel and Hamas, are actually moving in a positive direction towards peace. But the last point I'd make really is that peace for Israel is not just about Gaza, it's also about the West Bank. And peace for the Palestinians is also about the West Bank. And a two-state solution, I'm really glad we haven't discussed it, because
I didn't, because nobody's talked about it.
It's an almost impossible question to answer.
I know.
But to move towards that, point 19 of Donald Trump's peace list is a very, very difficult thing. But lasting peace has to come as a result of a certain level of Palestinian self-determination and guarantees of peace for Israel. And that will be an even more difficult ask.
Yeah, and as soon as we start looking at the problem in the West Bank with any depth, I'm rather more cynical than you. I do hope it's going to hold. But Duncan, it's been a pleasure talking to you again. Thank you very, very much indeed. Duncan Gardam there, a security analyst and international terrorism expert. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie. I've got a few messages from you. Joanna from Salisbury says, hi Petrie, it will be Iraq all over again in Gaza. Let's hope not. And she then says, you can't compare Gaza with Ireland, unfortunately. Ireland was far more clear cut. I genuinely wasn't comparing the situation in Ireland. It's just the fact that in order to have lasting peace, I was saying that the terrorist was invited to become the politician. And I was wondering if that was a possibility for Gaza, because the only reason that it was pretty much the Good Friday Agreement was that they would have a voice and have a say in the running of Northern Ireland. So it was just me posturing and thinking, could that be a way for lasting peace, is to give Hamas, a terrorist group like the IRA, a chance to come to the table. So that was it. But it's a good point. Not like it at all. Gary says, yay, the voice of the nation has been heard. I think he's talking, oh, he is so glad the phone in is back. Yes, the phone in is back. The phone in will be back from Monday at midnight. So we've heard your voices and we're doing it. So what can I say? You're the boss. And Gary goes on to say, your prezzies are in the post. I'm so excited. Oh, Gary sent me some presents. I love presents, by the way, just saying. And also bring Petrie back at 10 o'clock. And then I won't read the rest of it. But thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it's going to be 11 o'clock for the foreseeable future. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it your programme. We're going to hand it back to you. And we're going to make sure that you get out of it what you want. So if you want, you know, more of something or less of something, it's just going to be the 2 hours. We've got to cram a lot into it. But I've always maintained that this show is about you. It is about your voice. It's about you having your say. And that is incredibly important. So it's coming back. So, yeah, look, I've missed you. It's weird not talking to you guys. It's completely weird. So, yeah, as of Monday, we'll be able to chat again. So I hope you've got your fingers poised to make that. If you're old, it's that, isn't it? That was the old phone in. I'm doing the round phone in for those listening on radio. Anyway, yeah, so phone in back on Monday. I'm really, really pleased that you're pleased about it. And like I said, I am looking forward to talking to you again. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie, and another couple of messages. Kaz is saying, yes, it's fantastic news. So that's the news about the phoning coming back. And Jackie sent feedback at talk. It's an email, Jackie. So you have to send, I think we're going to put it up on the screen, I think. But feedback at talk, that's what's got this change. It's you guys sending in to feedback at talk. So keep it going, and you know, we'll make sure that it stays with the phone in at midnight, right? So feedback at talk. Petrie Hosken, I can't believe you've reduced Petrie Hosken's slot. I really miss her 3 hours. 2 hours just isn't enough. Make me blush, thank you. So if you send that as an email, Jackie, that will go straight through to, there it is, it's on the screen, feedback at talk.tv. So keep those messages going, because they do get read, and they do have an impact, because we're bringing it back. Right, let's move on to our next topic now. And Paula Higgins joins me, a Chief Executive of the Homeowners Alliance. And Paula, it's good to meet you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Property's such a hot topic at the moment, but for all the wrong reasons, right? I mean, the market's cooling, you know, mortgages are set to go up again. It is a time when a lot of people say, thank God I'm not a homeowner, or, you know, or desperately trying to get on the market and thinking, well, if the market comes down, maybe I will be one day. But with homes being so much in the news at the moment, what is if I can just ask you quickly before we get into the other topics, what is the point of owning, if you like, at the moment, with the mortgages going up and down and people really, really struggling?
Well, I mean, we are a nation we love our homes, really. There's lots of points to owning your own home if you know, it's giving people a choice, really. So people like to have their own front door, they've got security of tenure, and actually, to be honest, renting in places is actually quite expensive now. So you're putting your money towards your mortgage as opposed to your rent and giving it to somebody else. There's lots of reason why people might want to own their own home, but what we believe is that we want to give people choice, really, and it shouldn't be just because you've got a bank of mum and dad that you get onto the property ladder and you start to increase your asset. It should be something that should be open to everyone. So we lobby for increased supply, more affordability products, and really trying to be the voice of the homeowner and those who aspire to own.
Yeah, I mean, it breaks my heart with my son and his girlfriend paying an eye-watering, more than a mortgage would cost them, to rent a one-bedroom flat. But it's just trying to get the deposit together and all of those things. It's absolutely heartbreaking at the moment, and that's set to get worse, isn't it, for landlords now thinking about getting rid of their properties because that's all becoming too complicated. There's not enough profit in it anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right in terms of rentals, perhaps, but actually, you know, the landlords getting rid of properties might be more opportunities for first-time buyers to buy those properties. And there have been some movement on affordability. So, for instance, there's been relaxation of affordability rules. You can maybe get more of a multiples of income. So I think people who might have looked for a mortgage maybe a year ago and felt that they couldn't afford it and no one would lend to them, I'd suggest them to look again, really, because things have changed. You're right that the deposit is really, really hard to get, but there are 100% mortgages out there. So I'd recommend don't just think, don't give up, but, you know, speak to a mortgage broker and see maybe there can be something to be done.
Yeah, I mean, in my day, because I'm very old, it was 100% mortgages and self-cert. So we just all lied about what we were earning, and they went, oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that doesn't happen these days. I mean, you have to show proof of income, and you've got to, like, you know, they'll look at your outgoings. But you can not rig the system, but, you know, maybe before you're putting in your mortgage is to maybe cancel some of your subscriptions, show that you are, you know, you're quite sort of, you're used to using your money and being quite sensible.
Yeah, I would have never got on the ladder had I not completely lied. I was probably, it's gone now, so it's not fraud anymore. But anyway, everybody did it. Everybody did it. Listen, before we get on to leasehold versus freehold, which I'm fascinated about, which I do want to talk to you about, I do want to mention these thousands of homes. This is all over the papers about all these people through a government scheme had their properties insulated either under a grant or under a loan, and now it turns out that a lot of cowboy builders were doing it. There was no trademarking to it. There was no oversight to it. In fact, some of these builders even lied and said they'd done work and got paid millions of pounds. How can this happen? I mean, this is taxpayer money.
I know, it's absolutely shocking, and we commented quite extensively on the report by the National Audit Office yesterday, and we're talking like, 98% of the homes that were insulated under this scheme, they've got some problems with them, and there is a small minority who've got some serious problems that need to be rectified immediately. So I would say that if anyone has had insulation done under the Great British Insulation Scheme or one of the eco schemes, is you can find the advice on our website, but don't panic. But you can contact, there's a helpline for the Ofgem, and they'll come and audit your house and they will rectify things if things aren't right. So government's on it, but it's just a shocking experience to get there in the first place. So it's a whole sort of showing that, builders aren't regulated, that there isn't oversight, which is one of the reasons why people don't like to get building work done in their homes, because they're frightened.
Yeah, oh my God, trying to get a builder. I have become a master at fixing my own stuff now. Not because I particularly love it, but because you can't get reliable blooming builders anymore.
You don't know what their creds are like. So even if you find something on one of the sort of websites or whatever, people can pop up and become a builder overnight and then disappear as well. So that's why you've really got to do your checks carefully. And we do campaign for sort of better regulation of builders. In this case, it was terrible because there is a government sort of trust mark scheme which should have oversight over this, but clearly it failed in this instance.
Because it was all subcontracted. This is what these people do, isn't it? But also, it's not just a case of damp coming back through. Some of the work that was done is actually dangerous. It's blocking flues, central heating systems. I mean, this is really dangerous stuff, right?
Yeah, and we're a bit worried that, because we're worried that sometimes with these sort of announcements that it actually gives an opportunity for cowboy builders to then start knocking on people's doors saying, oh, if you had insulation done, it's dangerous and we'll come and fix it. So I'd like to reassure people that it's approximately sort of 1,500 homes, they say, but you're right, exposed live cabling, blocked boiler ventilation, which is why it's really important to get the phone number, get the helpline, and speak to them, and please don't deal with anyone cold calling at all. We see a lot of stuff on spray foam insulation, so it's actually goes much. This is just a tiny little scheme, but we are inundated all the time with people being, who've got spray foam, who are getting forced to get it moved out. So just really don't deal with cold callers. Do your research, and think with your feet, really. Think with your head, really, and make sure you get the right tradesman for you, and don't get pressurized into doing anything.
Yeah, I moved into my place about 3 years ago, and I'm still searching for the right person to come and do some damp work for me.
Well, I found we used the builder on our street because actually I knew where he lived.
You know where he lives.
That kind of WhatsApp, the WhatsApp groups and things like that is sometimes a good way to go. But again, make sure that if someone has done fixed a few electrics, that doesn't mean they can do a whole renovation of a house. So it's also showing that they've got competence in the type of renovation or the type of work that you want them to do. Yeah,
my plumber's a local man. I see him in the cafes all the time. I'm like that. I know where you live. Let's have a look at talking of boilers, getting your home ready for winter, because it is coming. We've just talked about insulation and how we can save a bit of money. And a lot of people say about our homes in this country, they're not really designed for any sort of weather. They're certainly not designed for the heat. But these older houses as well are not really designed for the cold either. So how can we best take advantage? I mean, the newer homes have all got to have all this insulation and all that stuff, European rules and everything. But what do you do with an older property that's a bit wind blown?
Well, it's difficult because that's one of the problems with the previous story we talked about, that it might not be appropriate to put in insulation. But there's easy things you can do. We say getting your home ready. Get your boiler serviced now. Get your gutters cleared. Look to see if there's any sort of because there'll be probably extreme weather, some rain. Look at your roof tiles. Getting those basic things fixed is good. And then there's also things you can do to keep yourself warm, like drafts. drafts excluders. So there's some simple things you can do and not sort of have to fortune, but just, maintain your house is your biggest asset. You need to also maintain it as well. So now's the time to sort of winterize and get yourself ready and cozy for the winter months.
Yeah, it's that maintenance is never ending. Right, over to leasehold versus freehold. And I've read extensively into this. Where does this apply? Again, does it apply to like those Victorian conversions that have got 2 flats in them, as well as the high-rise blocks?
Yeah, so there's about 5 million leasehold properties in the UK, or in England and Wales, should I say, and they vary very much so from high-rise blocks to a conversion, a Victorian conversion. There is something called share freehold, so sometimes some of the smaller sort of houses being converted might be a share freehold, so that you and your neighbours all sort of own in the sort of the maintenance of it. But leasehold is really, you're actually paying a landlord or a freeholder for the right to live there. You might be paying ground rent. The freeholder will be responsible for the service charges, to maintain the property if the roof needs replaced or fixed and that sort of thing. So it can apply everywhere. And the government has been, we've been promised reforms for years to make it a bit more easier for leaseholders to extend. Because a big thing is that a lot of leaseholders, they're only on, maybe 100 or 200 years rent, 100 years lease. And if it drops down below a certain amount, 80 years, you won't be able to sell because no one can buy with a mortgage, and you'll have to pay to extend that lease. So big message out there is to, check your lease, make sure you don't get below that 80 years. But there is government changes happening at the moment, and, watch this space, but it's super confusing. Again, we're keeping all this stuff updated on our site about the changes. So the government has promised to make it easier and cheaper.
But they have been promising. I think right back in the 60s or whatever, they were trying to ratify this and to make it so this whole, because are we the only country in the world that does this still? The whole landlord.
Scotland's managed to get rid of it.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And a friend of mine actually has just said he's bought a flat. It's a beautiful flat. But the maintenance, or not the ground rent, the yearly payment
charges,
so
yeah.
That's it. The service charge is just going up and up and up and up, and it's a way of making profit for these organisations. But they're talking about making it cheaper or forcing landlords to increase your lease much more cheaply, so they don't set the rate, the government would set the rate.
Yeah.
Does that, again, will that only, because I know some of these rules only apply to big blocks as opposed to small.
No, it's the same.
It's across the board.
Yeah, it's across the board, really. The government has, we've got a freehold and leasehold bill that's gone through that they're implementing. One of the tricky things at the moment is there's a judicial review. So freeholders who are, looking forward, they've had great income streams coming through, and the managing agents, they don't like this really. So, but we're constant in talk with government, and they are working to try to make it easier. And they've also promised a new form of tenure to actually abolish leasehold. This will take years and years, but common hold, and that is what the rest of the world has. So, or the condominiums or strata, and they call it in Australia, and that means everyone has a share in maintenance and management. It might, there's also other, issues that you're going to have to sort of talk to your neighbours, and there'll be disputes, but at least it'll be fairer because everyone's got a bit of skin in the game. So it's definitely worth, if you're a leaseholder, to read up on it and to understand what the changes are happening and how it will affect you.
Yeah, I read this earlier. It made me go, what? Report has recommended a ban on the use of the word sale for marketing homes on a leasehold title. It should actually be labelled lease rental. Then nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah, saying that, actually, I would say that actually, because there's been a lot of problems with leasehold, in particular with the high buildings, and what happened with Grenfell is actually leasehold properties haven't gone up in value as much. So you might get something out there, and if you are a first-time buyer, if you're living in London, you don't have any other choice. If you're going to live in a flat, it's going to be leasehold.
Fascinating to talk to you. Thank you. Really nice to meet you. Thank you very much indeed. Paula Higgins there, Chief Executive of the Home Owners Alliance. We're talking tech next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. And a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie. Just a reminder that Stella Chadakidou is joining us at midnight to go through the newspapers. But right now, let's turn our attention to Victoria Bousis, filmmaker, technologist, and AI studio founder. Victoria, it's lovely to see you again. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Talk to me about what's happening with Sora 2. What's this thing?
What is this thing that has turned the whole industry upside down?
Yeah.
So Sora 1 came out, and that was pretty interesting, but there still were a lot of hiccups, right? The consistency wasn't there. It felt like an uncanny valley. There wasn't, lighting was inaccurate. You didn't really have as much control. And then Sora 2 comes out, and it has completely changed the game. The consistency is there. The realism is there. The control is there, which means essentially that you need less prompts, less shots, let's say, but we'll put it into shots, to actually get the desired result you want. And for me, for instance, we're building an AI team right now, and we've taken on this idea of breaking down the science of huge action blockbuster films. Let's talk like Top Gun. I recently just saw F1 actually at the theaters. And I said, if I were to make something similar, it's not going to be one-to-one, right? But for the right use case, it's going to work. And I said, if I were to break this down to make it all in AI, how does this translate? What do I gain as a filmmaker in terms of money, time, all those complexities? And basically each film is broken down into about 3,000 shots, right? For action films, anywhere from 5-second sequences to 8-second sequences for the longer emotional moments. Now, the way OpenAI works and Sora 2 works is you buy credits. You buy credits based on seconds per shot. And if we were to break that film down into these various 3,000 shots, that eventually translates to a cost of about 200,000 pounds versus 200 million pounds that were to make the movie F1. What does this translate in terms of time? You're looking at 4 months versus 18 months of production time. I mean, this is how vast that variable has created in terms of creativity and creating these big blockbuster films. So a team of mine, for instance, of 5 prompt engineers can create that film. So you don't need those vast locations. You don't need those huge event sequences. You don't need all of those permits. You don't need any of that.
But does it produce a rather generic, clearly, obviously AI movie? Would we be able to tell?
I think you will be able to tell. I think this is why I say that it's not a one-to-one, right? I'm not going to sit there and say, oh my God, Brad Pitt's performance is going to be replaced, and we'll talk about Miss Tilly soon.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're curious about that.
Definitely.
It's definitely not going to do that. But in the right use case, when you're talking about dystopian future films or things that are heavy in CGI related material, then you're really looking at a use case that could potentially work. And again, OpenAI is pretty new. I mean, Sora 2 just came out not too long ago. So think about in the next 2 years where that's going to go. And I think it's going to be very impressive. I think you are going to get those reactions.
So certainly with things like the pixel cartoons and things like that, that could easily be replicated without all the work that goes into that, presumably, and we wouldn't notice so much of a difference.
Absolutely, Petrie, you're spot on that, because when you have more animated characters, you have less lines in the face.
Yeah.
You have less muscle, skeletal, and bodily issues underneath that. That's where the human eye can detect, and your brain says, something's not right there.
Yeah.
With characters, you really don't have all that high fidelity and all of those specifics. So you wouldn't be able to tell. And funny enough, a friend of mine most recently, she's doing this educational platform to help students and teachers learn. And her characters are all animated characters. And she showed me her recent small little take on one of her characters. And I've got to tell you, This little guy was turning around, was making these like snarly looking faces, and it was very impressive. And she goes, I'm not even an AI person. And I did it with a few prompts. She's never touched AI in her life.
So the prompts are, what I want is a character like this to do this move.
A prompt is like, zoom into this character and have my character be upset and stomp its feet. Enter. In about 10 seconds.
That's a game changer. That is a game changer.
And the variation, I mean, you're talking about millions versus thousands. You're talking, you know, a few months versus years. I mean, and you're not looking into pre-production, script development, post-production, editing, all of that stuff. You know what I mean? It is going to change the landscape of entertainment.
But again, it has its upside and downside, doesn't it? In one respect, we might get more creative people who haven't got the money, more creative stories. You know, not these studios that do a prequel and a sequel and a gequel to the same story all the time. We might get something fresh, right?
Yeah, because you're empowering more people, and you're making what was unattainable attainable. I mean, I could see it with our team. I mean, we don't have those kinds of resources, but we have some great computers, and we have some talented
It's absolutely fascinating. It really is. Tilly Norwood, she's causing a bit of a stir. She's an AI-generated actor and she's looking to be signed up by a talent agency, and it is causing a bit of a fuss. There she is. If you're looking, oh God, that's so real.
I know. I mean, you have to look at her Instagram account. I mean, I was flipping through it, and I was like, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
It's like a young girl. She's hanging out at a cafe. She's getting moments where she's upset. She's appearing in an action movie in one sequence. Then she's selling a pair of jeans. I mean, I'm looking at her, and I'm double taking it, Petrie. I'm also as shocked as you are.
Wow. I mean, you're insanely beautiful as well. You could be AI. I mean, I don't know. It's certainly not fair that you look like that if that's natural. So are actors, I mean, terrified, right?
So what's happening? Yeah, what's happening is it's creating quite a backlash. So CAA, Gersh, William Morrison, Endeavor, big talent agencies in Hollywood are saying, nope, we do not represent AI actors, we will represent humans. And they're smart to do that, right? Because they would be alienating their clients, and they would also be cannibalizing their business, essentially. Studios such as Disney have stepped up and made their comments, and there was a very powerful letter written by the Emmy-nominated actress, Betty Gilpin. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to read it, but I read it a few times, and it was super powerful. And I remember this line that she said, and I'm going to read it. She said, "Dear Tilly, you look good, but you look empty. You may look like someone, but you are no one. Go home, Tilly." That's the kind of reaction that we're getting.
Wow. I mean, but that is utterly terrifying. My job's definitely on the line. Listen, just before I let you go, Victoria, I want to hear about what you've been up to, because you're up for a BAFTA.
Hopefully so. Our game Stay Alive My Son, the PC version, is going to hopefully be in contention for the BAFTA Game Awards. And
congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. And then I have Darkness to Light, When Technology Heals Generations, hopefully going to be for the Oscars in the short film documentary section. So
and that's the one that we talked about before, wasn't it? That I've seen footage of. It's quite breathtaking. I mean, it really is. I'm so pleased for you.
Thank you so much. We're going to come to London and screen it in November. So hopefully we'll get a chance to meet each other, or
I would love that. I mean, it's good to have people like you on the right side of AI, right? Because I always imagine these people with the big twirly moustaches just raking in the pounds. But it's really nice to have somebody sensible and who can appreciate AI but knows that it must be in its place. So the world is a bit safer with you in it, Victoria. So thank you very much indeed, as ever. So that's Victoria Boussis there. She is unbelievably beautiful. If you weren't watching on screen, look her up. Stunning. So Victoria Booth is their filmmaker, technologist and AI studio founder. I've got another stunner for you coming in the studio. I'm feeling really ugly today. Stella Chadakido will be here in just a moment to go through the front pages of the newspapers for Wednesday. See you in a bit.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a very good morning to you. It is Wednesday the 15th of October and I just want to say a very happy birthday to David, who texted in and said no comment about current affairs, just my 65th birthday on the 15th of October. So I got it, the first person to have wished you happy birthday, I hope. There you go. Happy birthday to you. Now, though, I've got somebody new to introduce to you. I'm absolutely thrilled, although she is far too beautiful. Stella Chadakido, former Labour aide, joins me in the studio. It's lovely to see you.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, it's brilliant to have you. We have you know, our people who come in and do the papers that everybody gets to know. So I hope they get to know you as well. I've got a feeling we're going to get on fine. We're going to start, if you don't mind, Stella, just looking at the Washington Post across America being very much in the news at the moment, almost every single day. And the Washington Post here is saying a transformational but tenuous peace. And I think we've seen how tenuous that is just yesterday, as it were, on Tuesday, with some Palestinians being shot dead by the IDF, and then of course we've seen the Hamas shooting people themselves, just killing them in the square, shooting them in the back of the head. Where are your hopes with this?
Hope is a very strange word, because I have been feeling quite pessimistic about this, and of course you will have international leaders trying to make this look like it is a turning point, but we have seen previously with Iraq, with Afghanistan, that a state building is something very, very difficult, and it rarely works when it comes from above. And I think in this case, in the case of Gaza, it is even harder, because you have a situation where no specific state actor has a legitimacy over Gaza at the moment, not the international community, The US doesn't want to play a role. The President of the United States has made it clear that he thinks that he has done what he needed to do. He thinks that the peace deal is all that the US could be doing. I doubt that he will be either helping with boots on the ground or further funding. The international community is struggling to deal with all sorts of conflicts and all sorts of rebuilding, state rebuilding. And you're going to have the different groups in Gaza who will be battling for power. Yeah. And at the same time, you're going to have Israel, who is not going to trust whatever comes out of this process. And at the same time, you will also have all of these people returning to what used to be their homes, and they will be finding rubble. And we will be seeing more and more gruesome details of what was left behind, which is probably not the most hopeful.
It is difficult. It's difficult to ask the people of Gaza to heal, isn't it? When and that's what we need them to do, when they are still removing bodies from rubble, where there's still no schools to go to. And it is interesting to me, the narrative that Donald Trump is using here. And look, I'm not taking anything away from the fact that he got it to this position, but to say that's it, it's done, when it is so far from done. Anybody that's had even a rudimentary look at the history of the people there and the suffering and all of those, and Hamas and the power that they've already taken back on the streets, and the tribal nature, the civil war that could break out at any moment. This is a very, very complex region. And yet Donald Trump seems to think that a very simple solution is going to fix it.
It is fashionable among commentators to try to take Donald Trump seriously and to try to pretend that you can see what it is that voters see about him, and that's why his ascent to power is actually legitimate in so many ways that the liberal elite cannot see. But what I see is a deeply unserious person, a corrupt person who is abdicating responsibility. And I think it is deeply cynical, the way that he has treated the conflict and the very desperate and embarrassing way that he has tried to court the Nobel Peace Prize Committee as well. And we are living at a time where we see leaders like Netanyahu or Putin in Russia and Donald Trump who are realizing that that to be a powerful leader and to have a lot of influence, you have to go above and beyond and do things that are really, really shocking. And the rest of the society is saying, oh, why did you need to do that? You could have done something a lot more measured and you would have still gotten what you wanted. And this is the kind of shock value that we have come to expect from our leaders at the moment.
Yeah, it is. Benjamin Netanyahu is... Donald Trump says he's a very popular man. He's not actually in Israel, and this is a real problem for any peace as well. Everybody's looking and rightly so to a point, looking at Hamas and saying that they could destabilise this. But we have to remember that it is in Netanyahu's better interests, and certainly the hard right of his party to keep this going. Netanyahu does not want to go to court. He does not want to go to prison. And I got a real sense from him at the Knesset that he wasn't as happy as everybody else was about this.
Absolutely not. And who is to say that he's not going to do what his party has done in the past, which is they had actively funded Hamas and they had actively encouraged the more radical elements of Hamas and of the political actors in Gaza, because they knew that if the more radical elements were taking power in Gaza, then the international community would be less sympathetic and they would be able to justify whatever actions they were going to take. Because for politicians like Netanyahu, it is not an exaggeration to say that his preferred solution will be for Israel to completely occupy Gaza and to take Gaza.
And the West Bank.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? We've heard nothing about... Donald Trump didn't use the term two-state solution. Nobody's publicly used the term two-state solution. There is so little information about what this peace is going to look like. And so far, it appears that the people of Gaza have had no and will have no say in what it looks like, and that is not a recipe for peace, right? You can't force peace.
And exactly, and how are you going to be building this state with the extremely restricted finances, which at the moment it looks like it is mostly going to have to be countries like Qatar sending the funding. Is Israel, for example, going to allow for the borders to be relaxed and for economic activity and for Palestinians to be able to move in and out of Gaza so that there is economic activity and so that they can start rebuilding? I don't think that this is going to happen. I think that they are going to once again be living in an open-air prison where they are going to be extremely impoverished, extremely traumatized, still living among their destroyed homes. And the rest of the international community, for at least the short term, we will have to pretend, for Donald Trump, we will have to pretend that, well done, thank you so much, you did such a good job, we are all so grateful, because we are scared of what he's going to do. We're scared he's going to raise tariffs or whatever else.
Well, he's threatened to raise tariffs today, I think, on Spain for not paying their share of NATO. I mean, he's using tariffs as not as an economic tool, but as a weapon.
Yes, absolutely, because he knows how much we need him. And there were these memes that some right-wing people were sharing, which were showing how a leader like Obama or a leader like Biden is impotent because he's too predictable and he is not strong enough. Whereas somebody like Donald Trump is stronger in the international community. He can make the Taliban or other states, unfriendly states, listen to him. And I was thinking that is actually the opposite of what is going on. The reason why the US in the past was able to engage with all of these other countries, and the reason that they had so much international influence, was not because they were being weak. If anything, they were waging literal wars. They were putting boots on the ground. The rhetoric was just diplomatic because their politicians, we were living at times where being a statesman was something that was coveted.
Yeah, absolutely right. And also, it's the unpredictability, it's the negatives of Donald Trump that give him the strength. Right, or the perceived strength. It's the fact that no one knows what he's going to do next. What will he do? How will he do it? I was reading in the papers earlier on today that the NHS is now going to struggle to pay for for drugs because Donald Trump's annoyed that we get a preferential deal. So that's going to push drugs out of the NHS's reach and therefore out of the reach of people like you and me who might need them. And that is all Donald Trump. It's not, oh, you know, he's just like, well, you can't have that. It doesn't seem to make any sense. You'd think you'd want people to have what would make them better.
It is interesting to see, it's going to be interesting to see how long this can last, because whether he likes it or not, the American economy is going to be impacted by this. There is only so much time that powerful elites and also the people at large are going to be able to withstand the very real practical results of the way that he's leading the country and the way that he's influencing the world.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing about, oh, we've got all this money in from tariffs. You haven't got it in from tariffs. That's the American people paying those tariffs. And that message either hasn't got through to Donald Trump or it really hasn't filtered yet to the MAGA crowd. They haven't quite got the message that this money isn't China paying it or Britain paying it, it's them paying it. And I think once that literal penny drops, you know, maybe people will see exactly what's going on. Right, we're going to take a really quick break at this point. When we come back, we will start ploughing through the UK papers.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is Stella Chadakido. Am I saying that right?
Wonderfully.
Oh, goodness. With a name like Petrie, I do try to get everybody else's name right, because mine is always wrong. Everybody gets it wrong. So let's have a look at the Sun newspaper. Illegal migrant madness. What a waste of Monet. That's quite a good headline, actually, I have to say. And Monet is the painter, and money, as in money. Taxpayers are funding art classes, puzzle rooms and gyms for illegal migrants, even as they await deportation. This is going to cause a lot of anger with people.
I call fake news. You know what's the problem with all of these stories? Because I used to have people saying things like that about I used to work in the charity sector. And what is probably happening here is, so it says it very clearly, like £260 million going to centres for deportation. So this millions of pounds, they are going to pay for the building, pay for the salaries of the people who are working in these buildings, who and I'm sure there will be social workers there, right? We have immigrants, you have refugees, there will be children there. You will need to have social workers. So likely what happens is that some of these workers will be putting up art classes twice a week themselves.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that any significant amount of money is going into actual art classes, and likely because there will be children in there and they will not want to completely traumatize the children by having them locked up in a cage 24/7. Look, if we were actually spending hundreds of millions of pounds on art classes, I would be up in arms. For immigrants or for anyone else, this is not the time, I would be saying. But it is unlikely that this is what actually happening. The headline is just, it makes a good story, but it's just not the full picture.
Yeah, it's selective, isn't it? It's saying 260 million on detentions for deportation, and then it funds perks like art classes, but it also funds, as you say, the building, food, lawyers, probably, I don't know, or advice centres, or whatever. And it's the same. It's kind of the same narrative that I find really destructive, saying that immigrants are staying in 5-star hotels, and a lot of people believe that they are living in 5-star luxury. And I always say, look, I know it's frustrating, and I'm as frustrated as everybody else that so many people are coming across on boats, and I am frustrated that the taxpayer is having to fund that. But I've never seen an image of an immigrant in a white fluffy dressing gown being served by the swimming pool, right? These were 5-star hotels that have been shut down. They're getting paid a heck of a lot of money by the government to run the hotel as a centre, and then they get $1 million or $2 million, depending on the size of the hotel, to refurb it in a year's time. So they're in it for the money, but these are not run as 5-star hotels.
Exactly.
So this seems to me to be the same. They were, I get it, they were 5-star hotels, and maybe they are considered too smart. But, you know, you see new mattresses going in because they could put in 4 beds in one room.
Mm-hmm. It's literally we don't have the space. That is literally what this is.
Yeah. But this will anger people, and a lot of people do think that, well, if I can't get a free art class, then why should they? And I get that, but I also understand that, you know, if you've got people waiting for removal, it's like in prisons, right? You've got to keep people calm. Yeah. Otherwise, you get dissent, you get violence, you get problems.
Yeah. And you literally probably just have social workers having team meetings and thinking, what should we do? We need to have some kind of activity, or else people are going to go crazy. Yeah. That's probably it.
Yeah. And this is a deportation centre. Right. I'm going to set aside. Let's just quickly look at this. The Financial Times. Rachel Reeves is desperately seeking to find any money she can hidden at the back of the sofa for the budget that's coming up. We've heard so many things are being leaked at the moment for us to rage against. But the latest one is thinking she's lowering the tax-free limit for cash ISAs, probably halving it from 20 grand to £10,000 a year. The way that she sees it, she can say, well, this isn't affecting workers, this is only affecting savers, those people who've got more money than they should have.
I think it's a very good idea to try and redirect capital from low yield cash ISAs into stocks and shares ISAs, where you are likely to be getting a lot better returns. And I agree with your sentiment, which is we should start having an investment culture in the same way that they do in the US. In the US, you are a lot more likely to start investing into stocks a lot earlier, yeah. And you are going to get a much, much higher return.
But you could also lose it. And I think that there is a sense in this country we're not that type of risk taker that they have in
Yes,
in
and this
America.
is why we have traditionally loved to invest in assets like property. And what has that done for the economy? What it has done is that the way that most people have grown their wealth in the UK over the last few decades is through low productivity, low economic utility, buying property and renting it out or just sitting on it. And that is not good for our economy. This is not a healthy economy, one that is built on not utilizing capital. Capital needs to be utilized, to be put back into the economy. And I'm not saying, of course, the British public is spooked. We see that because we see that consumer spending is actually down, even though it used to be increased. It used to increase every year for the 6 years leading up to COVID. Consumer spending was increasing, and even though our actual incomes are still increasing, our spending is not. We are saving a lot more, and this is not good for our economy. This is not good for growth. I'm not saying, obviously, that people should be wise about where they put their money, and I think that investing is actually a very good way to use your money.
I think it would take such a monumental shift in public perception of the stock market and, you know, the risks that you might take. And I do see that that's the value, but let's not forget that if you are saving money, it is your money, and you should be free to do what you want with your money, not what the Chancellor tells you should do.
You can do whatever you want with your money, but the Chancellor gets to dictate policy, and she can increase or decrease the limit for cash ISAs. She's not saying that you're not allowed. There are other ways that you can save cash. You don't have to invest your money.
It seems like Labour doesn't want people to save. They don't like the idea of saving towards your pension. She's looking at attacking that. You know, she doesn't like the whole idea of this digital currency is that it will have a time limit on it. So if you don't spend it because the economy needs you to spend it, it'll just be erased. You know, when we work to earn our money. We pay the tax that we have to pay, and then we just want to be left the flip alone.
But the money is
do what we want with it. It's ours.
Money is going to money evaporates unless our economies are growing. Then money is actually losing value. Cash loses value so quickly. So if you just keep your money somewhere in a bank account, it loses its value.
But it's mine to do that with. If I want to hoard my money, I've earned it, I've paid tax on it. If I want it to sit there and melt away, that's up to me. That is not up to a government to tell me how to spend my money.
It makes sense to tax money that is not being used to its best economic utility. So the way our taxation, the sentiment behind our taxation system more generally is that we incentivize the kind of earnings that have economic utility, and we disincentivize the kind of economic activity that doesn't have more broader economic utility. And at the moment, the tax benefit of just saving cash is not proportionate to its economic utility for the country as a whole. And that, for the person who is saving, is actually very bad, because, as I said, your money, your pounds are losing their value. So it is in the interest of the person who wants to save a lot of money for the rest of the economy that he uses or she uses their cash in the most economically useful way for the whole country. not just for their own bank accounts, because your your pounds are not worth anything if the economy is tanking.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I'm very tired of various political parties permanently having their hand in my back pocket, because we're taxed. We were led to believe you get taxed on income, and then you get taxed on literally everything else that you do, and this cannot continue. That is bad for the economy, as you've just said, because people are worried about what's coming up in this budget and they're not spending their money. What are they doing? They're saving it because they're terrified that Rachel Reeves is going to have her sticky fingers in their bank accounts. So it's not good to overtax either, right?
No, my ideal policy solution would be that we force all of the people of the whole world to pay tax where they earn their money. That would be my ideal solution. Sadly, I cannot force Jeff Bezos to tax register Amazon in the UK. I would love to do that.
That's exactly what we should be doing, and leave the rest of us alone.
We should have a culture where we shame people who are sending invoices from Dubai or whatever other tax haven. It should be a shameful thing.
You can't shame a billionaire. They couldn't give a flying fig.
Throw tomatoes at them when they are passing through Trafalgar Square.
They literally don't care. They laugh at us as they have £50 million weddings in Italy. But I agree with that. I think that, rather than coming after, everybody else, and she is nitpicking now, trying to find these bits of cash. Rather than doing that, you just go after the Bezoses and the Starbucks and all of those people and say, right, you sell in this country, you pay in this country. It's as simple as that.
You know what I would like to see? I would like to see us reform corporation tax in a way so that it is proportionate to how much revenue you are getting. And what I would do, which would mean that our Amazon deliveries would be more expensive. The way to tax someone like Jeff Bezos and Amazon is to charge them more VAT, on online companies.
Yeah, I agree.
It would make their product more expensive. It would make Amazon more expensive.
Oh, because they're never going to lose out on profit, right?
Yeah.
They're never, ever. We've seen that with the likes of Tesco, Sainsbury's, whatever. Prices go up, wages go up. They don't lose profit over that. What they do is they hand it over to the government to top up the wages with tax credits. It's disgusting, actually, because you see the amount of profits that companies like Tesco make. They can afford to pay those wages, but it ends up being you and me.
Yeah, there was an interview that Boris Johnson did for The Telegraph, either today or yesterday, and he was talking about the Boris wave of immigration that came after Brexit. So during during COVID, during the pandemic, they started having these skilled visas because the entire private sector and the Treasury was telling the government, look. Businesses are having trouble hiring people. Inflation is putting a lot of pressure on wages, meaning, the private sector will need to pay higher wages to get more workers, which is what happened with lorry drivers, right? If you remember, you had a shortage of lorry drivers. And what happened? We had to increase the salaries of lorry drivers by 30%. And what did Treasury do? What did the Treasury suggest to Boris Johnson to do? You just have to get in more immigrants. And because the Home Office did not have day-to-day data, they didn't have a clear picture of how many people were coming out. That's how you got 900,000 people in a single year to come to the UK on all of these visas. It wasn't because we had a genuine... of course we had shortages on skilled... There were shortages for some professions, but really we could have just increase the wages, especially for something like social care workers, where the reason why you don't have people doing them is because you're getting paid the same as if you worked for Tesco, for example. So rather than doing the capitalist thing, which would be, we're going to let the market dictate the price for these workers, we just responding to the interests of the profits of the private sector rather than what the actual economy demands.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful. It really is, because this private sector, like we said, they don't like losing money. They don't like losing profit, and every year it goes up. And look at the banks. Anyway, another message here for coming in. Maxine has said, "Hi Petrie, what's happened to your phone-in show? I've been watching for a while now and it's all paper reviews. Are you not doing a phone-in anymore?" And that's from Maxine in Maidstone. Yes, I am. It's coming back as of Monday. So make sure you're ready to call in. So Monday at midnight, the phone-in, because so many of you asked for it to come back. It is coming back. So I'll be able to chat to you then. So, and if you want to let the bosses know, here you go, there's the thing, feedback at talkTV, that's what's done it. So do send your feedback to the, feedback at talk.tv. I don't even know. And Rachel has said, "I love your show, but I really don't like getting annoyed late at night." Rachel. Well, I'm sorry we're annoying you, but you know, it's a feisty conversation. We're going to take a quick break so you can have a bit of a relax, Rachel, but we will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Yep, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Stella Chadakidou, former Labour aide, and we're going through the newspapers for Wednesday. The Metro next, Stella. An asylum seeker living in a migrant hotel murdered a woman staff member, female staff member, I would have said, by stabbing her 23 times with a screwdriver after following her to a deserted railway station at night. And something I was reading earlier, he was then seen dancing and laughing with his friends.
This is a
horrible story.
Horrible story, especially because just the gruesome description of what this man did. I mean, he sounds unwell, he sounds mentally unwell, and I'm not saying this to justify anything or anything like that, but I don't know how else to explain how you could do such a thing.
Yeah. To a woman who was fundamentally there to help.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, though, that a lot is being said about at the moment about Human Rights Act and the European Court of Human Rights and things like that, and there will be people who are saying, yeah, and I bet, you know, once this person goes to jail and then it comes out again, why can't we deport them? And there will be a suspicion, not unfounded, that human rights will be used to protect this violent person.
I think for someone like this, I mean, he's unlikely to ever come out of the prison. The problem you have with someone like this is, what do you do? Do you keep them in prison for the entirety of whatever sentence they are given, which means that the taxpayer is paying
50 grand a year.
Exactly, to have him there? Or do you deport them back to Sudan, which means that they basically do not face justice and they are allowed to roam free in, you know, in their country.
But I mean, yeah, that is a really tricky one, because we can't insist that they're imprisoned in their home country because the crime was committed here. But again, you know, what's the betting that if we tried to deport him back to Sudan, that he would say that his human rights are being violated? And I think that's what a lot of people are worried about at the moment, that there seems to be a lot of stories where people who are bad people don't get deported and then continue to commit crimes in this country, and they've used some human rights loophole to do that.
So in the grand scheme of things, the cases where this is actually happening are very, very few. But I am of the opinion that even though it's very few cases, it's still really jarring, and I think it's very, very bad for the trust of people in democracy and the rule of law to see the ECHR being used this way.
Yeah, I agree.
And we are very squeamish about criticizing the judiciary, and we are right to do that, because it is important that there is a separation of powers when it comes to justice and when it comes to politics. And judges need to be independent, and politicians should not be able to have a say on legal cases. But because I studied law in university and in the UK as well, and it was something that we discussed as law students, would you replace the ECHR with a Bill of Rights? And we talked about the living instrument doctrine, which essentially means that the ECHR, from the time it was created, it has been allowed, judges are allowed to not take the articles in it literally, but to apply them, to interpret them exactly, given what they believe is a modern interpretation. This is why the right to a family life, for example, can apply to mean that you may have a pedophile and you're trying to deport them back to wherever they're from, and because they have kids here, they can say, I have to be allowed to be able to see my kids, even though they're a pedophile. So the average person on the street would say, wait a minute, they're a pedophile. No, don't allow them.
That right.
They should not see their kids. But it's just a very complicated legal system, and I always have lawyers fire back and say, why would you do that? Why would you give into this right-wing theory about the ECHR, blah, 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 blah? And the average person doesn't care about your legal fiction.
No.
And if you, as a democratic, liberal politician, lawyer, whatever person with a sound mind, if you do not take this very real and a very fair concern of the average voter, then they're going to vote in someone who will take that concern seriously. And you know what? We may not like what that person is going to do.
I absolutely agree with you on that. And you know, I've always say to people, have you ever read the Human Rights Act? Because it could literally be written on the back of a fact packet. And this is why it's so open to interpretation, because actually it's very slight, isn't it? It's very, a few words, a few lines. You know, the one solution might be to beef it out and draw a ring fence around some of these rights, that it isn't an inherent right to a family life if you are indeed a convicted paedophile, that you will lose some of those rights, just like prisoners lose the right to their freedom. Right? It is probably, you know, a human right to be free and not you know, caged or enslaved in some way, which it is a human right. But if you break the law, you are deprived of that right. So I've always thought that the Human Rights Act should be brought up to date, maintaining. I like the Human Rights Act. I love human rights. I think they're a great idea, and I think that they are very sensible human rights, but somehow to be less open to interpretation and less open to the will of a judge and more closed down to the actual law.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you, and I think that we have examples from other countries in the EU. The EU is not the same as the ECHR, you should know that, but other countries in Europe who are signed up to the ECHR who have managed to do that. So I do also think that it has something to do with the fact that I always, the UK, both our politicians and our judiciary We love attention to detail a little bit more, and we love rules a little bit more than other countries. And people will often ask me, oh, the Prime Minister of Greece said this thing. Why can't our Prime Minister here in the UK speak in the way and do the things that the Greek Prime Minister is doing? And I have to remind them, look, the Greek politicians, they can say whatever they want. The journalists will have forgotten a week later. The Greek people are completely used to being told all sorts of things that never happen. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But maybe sometimes we need to learn to do the same thing here.
Yeah. And you're right in saying that if these politicians and these judges don't pay attention to the very legitimate concerns that we've just talked about, then this is where the wheels come off. This is where we exit the European Court of Human, which we should not do. And there are all sorts of treaties anyway that we're bound to. But if they don't listen, and this is Keir Starmer's particular problem, I think, you know, by referring to people who care about the rape gangs, you know, if you're going on about that, then you are racist. It's like you're deaf. You're not listening. And this plays straight into reform's hands.
Yes, no, I completely agree. And I think that with something like the rape gangs, for example, I do think that eventually they did the right thing. But I think that at the beginning, the defensiveness was unnecessary.
It's completely unnecessary, really, really dumb, really stupid. Daily Express, Reeves blow as prices rise and growth stalls. That's back to the IMF offering a bleak verdict on the UK economy. She's really got to keep scrabbling behind the cushions for more money, hasn't she?
Yeah, I wish though that we weren't so neurotic about everything that the IMF or the OBR or whoever else says about, because all of these market predictions, they are like zodiac signs. We really should not. The IMF has not historically been completely right about their predictions of the UK economy.
No, that is very true. The Daily Mail, though, being a little bit more blunt, Labour isn't working again. Number of jobless hits a 4-year high. We face the highest inflation in the G7 and growth in wages and living standards stall.
Yes, we have low productivity. We have millions of people who are on unemployment benefits. Our economy is suffering for sure, and this is why I'm bothered about a lot of the scaremongering and about our inability to have a long-term strategy because of the short-term pain that a lot of the things that we need to do require. And I always say, if I was Prime Minister, what I would do is I would say I'm going to be a one-term Prime Minister. I'm going to get into government. I'm going to do all of the very difficult things that need to happen.
I don't want to come back.
And then I would resign a hero. Everybody would hate me, but it would be done. And I have to say, one of the things that really do need to happen is I think we should be scrapping the triple lock and replacing it with a double lock. And that is one of the things that would be appeasing the markets that are completely freaking out, because we're talking about, you know, oh, there are so many people who are not working. Well, one of the reasons why it is very hard to raise our productivity is because our infrastructure is so bad. So when people cannot do not have adequate transport links and they do not have affordable housing where the jobs are, that's going to drag your productivity down.
Of course it does. I mean, the social contract between young people and the country has completely broken. It's gone. Because it used to be, if you work hard, if you partake in society, you'll be able to own a house, you'll be able to afford to have children, you'll be able to afford all of these things. That is now so far away that a lot of young people say, why should I bother? And I don't blame them either. That social contract has been torn up. And the Eye actually is talking about this. The UK state pension set to climb 4.8% as triple lock helps buffer over 65s from inflation. And again, I always say to younger people, you're paying in to a pension you will probably never get. Why should they bother?
It is insane because the UK and France are, for the first time in history, we are seeing pensioners' incomes increasing faster than the incomes of working people.
Yeah.
And working people, not working age people, working people. And a lot of people will say, but the UK state pensions are still some of the lowest, blah, blah, blah. Well, that is not true, because pensioners are still the wealthiest cohort, and they have benefited from the property boom and the price increase in the property portfolios. And even though for each pensioner, one thing that really bugs me is, I wish Rachel Reeves would scrap the triple lock now and replace it with a double lock, because if she did it right now, because inflation is going to be high for the next 3 years, state pensions would still rise, they would continue rise, so you would have pensioners being very angry for the first year and very upset, but then for the next 3 years they would realize that, oh, wait a minute, my state pension is still increasing, it is increasing faster than wages, I'm still better off, so I'm actually fine. So by the time we would have the next elections, maybe they would have kind of forgiven the government.
Yeah.
This
well,
is my
they haven't
thinking
forgiven
anyway.
them for the £300 heating winter fuel allowance, so I doubt they'll. And this is the thing, isn't it, as well, that older people are more likely to get out and vote. And it's not about doing the right thing sometimes. It's about doing the thing that gets you re-elected. And that is the problem with the system.
The triple lock in the next until the next election, it could cost us up to £8 billion extra a year. Yeah. If we scrap the two-child benefit cap, that would be £3.5 billion a year. And we are saying that, oh, we need more young people to have more kids, we are having a demographic crisis. Well, shouldn't it be that the older generation just looks at the situation and they realize that, you know what, a lot of them can probably go by without the £500 extra a year, if it means that families with a lot of kids raise them not in poverty.
Yeah, but there's an idea, though, isn't it, that all pensioners are well off and manage to buy houses, which isn't true. And there's now talk of saying, I've been reading a lot about people with good private pensions should not get the state pension that they've paid into. And I get that's the socialist way of doing things. A lot of people who put their children into private school also pay for the state education of other people's children. But that would be very harmful to any government that suggested that.
Isn't it better if, instead of arbitrarily increasing the state pension every year, we reinvest all of this money into the services that pensioners use the most anyway? It is the pensioners who benefit the most from our NHS.
Yeah, it is just that you touch the pensioner's pocket at your peril. The grey pound is a very powerful thing. We're going to take a quick break, but we will be back in just a mo.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until the top of the hour, and with me Stella Chadakidu, who's a former Labour aide, is with me going through the papers. The Daily Mirror, Stella, and we both did a double take at this headline. Boris did harm our kids. We were wondering, so something we didn't know, but this is actually about schools during COVID.
Yeah, about whether they were going to close schools and the plans for schools to reopen, and there was a lot of complaints about Boris Johnson's inability to take a decision and all of the back and forth between the civil service and the Department of Education. And Gavin Williamson admitted that a lot of departments were simply not ready for the eventuality of the pandemic to begin with, but also either the lockdown or then opening back up again, and what measures would be.
I mean, we remember
necessary.
it, right? It was a mess. It was an absolute mess, but it's we can all get a degree in hindsight. The easiest qualification in the world is to look back and go, oh, well, that didn't. You know, at the time, I mean, as much as I thought Boris was a buffoon, I think he did what he thought was the right thing to do at the time.
Yes, and I think that even if they had taken different decisions, there would still be a massive outcry. Because on a lot of his, and they had, it was such a live debate as well in the US, and as always, the politics of the US filter into the UK, and they poison our own debates, even though the reality on the ground is completely different from there. So it was very, very difficult to know the right decisions to take. And you had all of these parents who were locked in with their kids and constantly online, and worrying about the future of their kids and their development needs and all of that. So.
And it's definitely had an impact on young people, hasn't it? We're starting to see that coming through now in mental health issues and even developmental issues. Because, you know, imagine having a baby at that time in lockdown. They didn't learn to socialise, they didn't learn to share toys, they didn't, you know, language, all of those things, and that will start to play through into adult life. That's going to have a massive impact.
There were some very, very worrying education reports this week, which were showing that kids are going into kindergarten, and these would be kids that would be born during COVID, right? If they would be 5 or 6 years old now. And all of these kids, they're going to school without being toilet trained. A lot of them will not know very simple things like how to hold the book, how to turn a page, rather than just scroll on a phone.
Scrolling on a phone, and that must have been just so difficult, because a lot of parents would have tried to do the right thing for their children, but if they're not at nursery or in the park playing with other kids, that is a vital part of development, of brain development, that has been lost to a, you know, potentially a generation of children that were born at that time. Very difficult. The Guardian for today, again going with the tensions high as Israel cuts aid to Gaza, so it's already cut that. But the millions of UK homes at risk of climate flooding, and it's been phenomenal watching Storm Alice and what she's done to Spain. I mean, it is absolutely devastating looking at that. And the idea that we're building on floodplains has always caused a problem, but into the future we're going to see more and more flooding.
Yeah, remember Loughborough, the floods in Loughborough, the in 2024 last year.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane scenes that you couldn't recognize as being in the UK, and it is. Our housing stock is not ready for the climate changes that are coming.
No, in any regard. I was just talking earlier to the housing people, and she was saying to me, let me just get the right title. Actually, that's rude, me not knowing her. Paula Higgins, Chief Executive of the Homeowners Alliance, and we were talking about how, you know, a lot of homes in Britain they're rubbish in the summer. And they're terrible in the winter as well. So we're not ready for these extremes. I mean, up until now, it's just been, oh, it's winter, oh, it's summer. But we are now starting to see those extremes in weather that we are not ready for.
Yeah, that's something that always impressed me. In comparison to Greece, which is obviously a country that is poorer than the UK, the housing stock of middle class or lower middle class family in Greece is a lot better than what people have access to in the UK. In terms of things as you said, like the insulation is very, very bad. And it always felt to me like if you had an earthquake, for example, in London, it would be so much more dangerous than a lot of places in Greece.
Yeah, possibly right. Let's have a quick look at the Times. What have we got? Hamas again. A lovely picture of the Princess of Wales making a potato and apple cake. I'm not in for that. I'm not down.
A bit strange, but I'm glad to see her looking well and happy.
Yeah, she definitely does. She does look great. And the story actually on the front of the Daily Star. Let's go with that news with a wink. Gavin and Numpty, that is Boris Johnson. They can't resist putting a red nose on Johnson and a dunce's cap on Gavin Williamson. But the story that Stella and I are most interested in is Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau.
What a couple.
How
I'm so
did that
jealous
happen?
of both of them.
Yeah. How did that happen?
I don't know, but can you imagine how much fun that must be?
I mean,
do you think that someone set them up, like Meghan and Prince Harry?
Somebody must. I mean, I don't know how those two worlds collide. I mean, Justin Trudeau. I mean, I have to say that I think every female friend of mine just fancied him. I mean, I didn't know a woman that didn't really fancy Justin Trudeau. Certainly when he was younger.
There are women who fancy Justin Trudeau, and then they're liars.
Yes, I completely agree. And he was really, really hot, and I thought, and he was also incredibly intelligent, wasn't he? I think he was a rocket scientist or something. Anyway, he was incredibly intelligent as well. And then I thought he let himself down during COVID, and of course there were a lot of things that he did that really the Canadian people went, no, we're not putting up with that. But then he came back up again with Donald Trump. So I started to love him again. But he spurned me for Katy Perry.
Well, as much as I want you to eventually get your wish, I just wouldn't it be very cute if these two stayed together.
Oh, it really
they became
would.
an item.
Yeah. I mean, again, I thought that Trudeau always looked like he was happily married. You never know what goes on, do you? But there's been a decent amount of time, and when I first heard the rumour, I was like, nah, surely not, because I am very suspicious about all these things. But like you said, I think it's lovely. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I wish them well. But Katie, if you ever have enough of him, send him my way, or Stella's way. I mean, we won't fight.
No, absolutely not.
May the best woman win. That's it for the papers. Stella, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I hope you come back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Good.
I hope I will be back.
Brilliant. Stella Chedakito there, former Labour aide. Right. I have some news for you, talking of politicians.